She took a bullet meant for the CEO. Minutes later, the CEO made an unimaginable move. A brave bodyguard throws herself in front of a sniper's shot, and the whole world watches in shock as the coldest boss in the country suddenly steps forward with a decision no one saw coming. But that was only the beginning. Because while she fights for her life in a hospital bed, something far darker rises behind the cameras, something the CEO hoped would never come back. The shooter wasn't a stranger, and now the woman who saved him is the only leverage a hidden enemy wants. Whispers start spreading. The company explodes into chaos, and a secret from the CEO's past threatens to swallow everything: his legacy, his fortune, even the woman who risked everything for him. When a life-saving act uncovers a deadly family secret, how far will a man go to protect the one person he never expected to lose? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now, and if this story speaks to you, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. The morning sun cast long shadows through the glass-paneled ceiling of the Phoenix Convention Center, creating a lattice of light and shadow across the polished floor. Jessa Quinn moved with practiced efficiency through her protective sweep, her footsteps echoing in the still, quiet space. Her dark suit helped her blend in with the early morning setup crew, but her alert eyes and purposeful movements set her apart. She paused at each doorway, mentally marking it on her internal map. Exit 1, northwest corner. She murmured to herself, touching the radio at her ear. Clear sight lines to the main stage. The catwalks above drew her attention. Perfect sniper positions. She'd have to position personnel up there during the keynote. The expo hall buzzed with growing energy as tech enthusiasts filed in, their excited chatter bouncing off the high ceilings. Jessa checked her watch. 55 minutes until Vincent Hale's keynote speech. Her team was in position, but something felt off. She couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in her gut, the same feeling that had saved her unit more than once during her military police days. Team check. She spoke quietly into her radio, receiving crisp confirmations from her security staff. The media area was filling up fast, cameras and equipment being set up in the designated press zone. Jessa noticed a photographer adjusting his lens, then another, and another. All normal expo behavior, but her instincts remained on high alert. Vincent Hale arrived exactly 40 minutes before his scheduled appearance, as planned. He moved with his usual confidence, his tailored suit and commanding presence drawing attention even before he reached the stage. Jessa fell into step beside him, close enough to protect, but not so close as to seem obvious. "Morning, Miss Quinn," Vincent said, his voice carrying that hint of amusement it always held when addressing her formally. "Anything I should know about?" "Standard procedure, Mr. Hale. We've secured the perimeter and have eyes on all access points." Jessa scanned the growing crowd as she spoke, her training never allowing her to fully relax. The next 30 minutes passed in a blur of final sound checks and lighting adjustments. Vincent reviewed his notes while Jessa performed one last sweep of the stage area. The crowd had swelled to capacity, phones raised to capture photos of the famous tech mogul. When Vincent took the stage, the applause was immediate and enthusiastic. Camera flashes popped like lightning across the darkened audience. Jessa maintained her position stage left, eyes constantly moving, searching for anything out of place. That's when she saw it, a pinpoint of red light, steady and unwavering, appearing on Vincent's chest as he began to speak. Time seemed to slow down as her training kicked in. The distance to Vincent, the trajectory of the light, the angle from the catwalks, her mind calculated it all in a split second. "Gun!" she shouted, already in motion. Her legs propelled her forward with explosive force, muscles responding to years of conditioning. Vincent had only begun to turn toward her voice when she reached him. The impact of her body against his was forceful, but controlled, designed to move him out of the line of fire. The crack of the rifle shot came a split second later, followed by screams from the audience. Jessa felt the bullet strike her back, just below her left shoulder. The pain was immediate and intense, like being hit with a white-hot hammer. They landed hard, Jessa managing to twist so she took the brunt of the fall. Vincent's eyes were wide with shock as he stared down at her, his hands automatically moving to support her. The chaos around them seemed distant, muffled, as if happening in another world. "Stay! Down!" Jessa managed through gritted teeth, trying to maintain pressure on her wound while still scanning for additional threats. Security teams were already flooding the area, their shouted commands mixing with the panicked sounds of the fleeing crowd. Vincent ignored her order to stay down, instead pulling her closer, his hands now covered in her blood. "Jessa, why would you—" His voice trailed off as his eyes darted to the catwalk where the shot had originated. Through the haze of pain, Jessa saw his face change. The shock and concern were replaced by something else, recognition, followed by a bone-deep pallor that drained the color from his features. He knew the shooter. Paramedics arrived with practiced urgency, their efficient movements a blur of activity around her. As they lifted her onto the stretcher, Jessa fought to stay conscious, her training warring with the pain and blood loss. Vincent stood frozen, his expensive suit stained with her blood, his eyes fixed on the distant catwalk where the sniper had been. "Sir, we need to get you to a secure location," one of her team members urged. But Vincent seemed rooted to the spot. His face had taken on an ashen quality that spoke of more than just shock at the attempt on his life. The last thing Jessa saw before the paramedics whisked her away was Vincent's expression, a mixture of horror, recognition, and something deeper, something that looked almost like guilt. Then the convention center's emergency doors swung shut, leaving behind the chaos of what should have been an ordinary Friday morning. Security personnel flanked Vincent Hale as they rushed him through the maze of backstage corridors. His expensive shoes squeaked against the polished floor, the sound echoing off concrete walls. His hands trembled as he looked down at them, still stained with Jessa's blood. The image of Nathan's face wouldn't leave his mind. His brother, alive, changed, but unmistakably Nathan had tried to kill him. The shock of recognition kept replaying like a broken record. The familiar stance, the way he'd moved in the shadows, and those eyes, those haunted eyes that Vincent had last seen 7 years ago. "Mr. Hale, please, we need to get you settled in the media room," urged Sandra Chen, his head of PR, her heels clicking rapidly beside him. "The press is already swarming, and social media is exploding with footage of the shooting." Vincent barely heard her. They reached the secure media room, a space typically used for press conferences and video announcements. The moment the door closed behind them, chaos erupted. "The stock is already down 12%, shouted Marcus from the financial team, waving his tablet. "We need damage control now." "Legal's concerned about liability," added David Cooper, the company's lead counsel. "The venue's security protocols clearly failed. We need to prepare for—" "Enough!" Vincent's voice cut through the noise. He turned to Sandra, who flinched at the intensity in his eyes. "Where did they take her? Jessa Quinn, where is she?" Sandra consulted her phone. "Banner University Medical Center. She's in emergency surgery. The bullet—" Vincent collapsed into the nearest chair, running his shaking hands through his hair. The guilt crashed over him in waves. Jessa had taken a bullet meant for him, a bullet fired by his own brother. The weight of it felt crushing. "Mr. Hale, we need to focus," Marcus persisted. "The board is demanding a statement. Investors are panicking. We need to—" "Set up the broadcast equipment." Vincent interrupted, his voice quiet but firm. Sandra stepped forward, confusion clear on her face. "Sir, we haven't prepared any statements yet. We should take time to—" "Now." Vincent stood up, a strange calm settling over him. "Set it up now. we're going live." The room erupted in protests, but Vincent's expression silenced them. The technical team scrambled to prepare the equipment, while his advisors watched in barely contained horror. Within minutes, the cameras were ready, aimed at Vincent sitting alone at the desk he used for major company announcements. "Sir, please." Sandra made one last attempt. "At least let us draft some talking points." Vincent shook his head. 3, 2, 1. He counted down with the technician, and then the red light blinked on. "Good morning," he began, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "As many of you know, there was an attempt on my life this morning at the Phoenix Tech Expo. What you may not know is that I am alive only because of the extraordinary courage of one woman, Jessa Quinn." He paused, swallowing hard. Behind the camera, his advisors watched in growing anxiety. "Ms. Quinn took a bullet meant for me. Right now she's fighting for her life in surgery. And as I sit here, safe because of her sacrifice, I've come to a decision." Vincent leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Effective immediately, I am announcing my resignation as CEO of Hale Technologies." Gasps filled the room. Marcus grabbed his phone, likely watching the stock price plummet in real time. But Vincent wasn't finished. "Furthermore, I am pledging my entire personal fortune, all of it, to Jessa Quinn." The control room erupted in chaos. Sandra nearly fainted while David began frantically scribbling legal notes. Vincent continued, his voice growing stronger. "This woman put her life on the line without hesitation. She showed me what true courage looks like, what true worth looks like. And in doing so, she made me realize how far I've strayed from the person I once wanted to be." Behind the cameras, phones were ringing non-stop. Board members were likely already calling for emergency meetings. Vincent didn't care. "That's all, thank you." He signaled to cut the feed, ignoring the protests from his team. The red light blinked off, and sudden silence fell over the studio. One by one, his shocked advisors filed out, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Sandra lingered at the door. "Sir, what have you done?" she whispered. Vincent sat in his chair, staring at the dark camera lens. The magnitude of what he'd just done began to sink in. He'd essentially given away billions of dollars on live television. He'd thrown his company into chaos. The board would be furious. The shareholders would revolt. Yet as he sat there in the quiet studio, his hands finally still, Vincent couldn't bring himself to regret it. For the first time in years, he felt free. The image of Jessa throwing herself in front of him, the memory of Nathan's face in the shadows, it had shattered something inside him. Something that needed to break. Sandra quietly closed the door, leaving him alone with the hollow echo of his decision hanging in the air. The phones kept ringing somewhere in the distance, but Vincent remained still, sensing that his life, and many others, had just changed irrevocably. The first thing Jessa noticed was the beeping. Steady, rhythmic, slightly annoying. Her eyelids felt heavy as she tried to open them, fighting against the lingering effects of anesthesia. The hospital room slowly came into focus. White walls, medical equipment, late afternoon sunlight filtering through vertical blinds. "Welcome back," a gentle voice said. A nurse in blue scrubs moved into view, adjusting something on one of the monitors. "I'm Kelly. You've been out for about 6 hours. The surgery went well." Jessa tried to speak, but her throat felt like sandpaper. Kelly quickly brought her a cup of water with a straw. After a few sips, Jessa managed to whisper, "The expo. Vincent Hale." "Mr. Hale is fine," Kelly assured her. "You saved his life. The bullet hit you in the shoulder." She paused, checking Jessa's vitals. "How's your pain level? Scale of 1 to 10? 4. Maybe 5. Jessa responded, becoming more alert. She noticed muffled voices and commotion coming from outside her room. Through the small window in the door, she could see 2 security guards stationed outside. Why are there guards? Kelly busied herself adjusting Jessa's IV drip. Dr. Matthews will be in shortly to explain everything. Try to rest until then. But rest seemed impossible as Jessa became increasingly aware of the chaos beyond her door. She could hear what sounded like dozens of people talking, cameras clicking, occasional shouting. It reminded her of press scrums she'd seen during her military police days. But that made no sense here. 20 minutes later, Dr. Matthews entered, a tall woman with graying hair and kind eyes. "Ms. Quinn, I'm glad to see you awake. I'm the surgeon who operated on you. The bullet grazed your scapula, your shoulder blade, but fortunately missed any vital organs or major blood vessels. You're very lucky." "Doesn't feel lucky," Jessa muttered, wincing as she tried to shift position. "That's understandable. You'll need several weeks of recovery and physical therapy, but we expect a full return of mobility." The doctor glanced at the door, where the noise outside seemed to be growing louder. "Though I suspect your biggest challenge might not be physical?" Jessa followed her gaze. "Why are there reporters here? I can hear them. This isn't normal for one security guard getting shot, even at a high-profile event." Dr. Matthews sighed, pulling up a chair. "Ms. Quinn, are you aware of what happened after you were brought here?" "I was unconscious," Jessa said slowly. "The last thing I remember was the expo, seeing the laser sight on Vincent's chest, and then pain. About 2 hours after your surgery began, Mr. Hale made an unexpected broadcast." The doctor seemed to choose her words carefully. "He announced his immediate resignation as CEO of Hale Technologies." Jessa blinked in surprise. "He what?" "And," Dr. Matthews continued, "he pledged to give you his entire personal fortune." The room went silent except for the steady beeping of the heart monitor, which was starting to speed up. "He... what?" Jessa repeated, certain she'd misheard. "Perhaps you should see for yourself." The doctor reached for the TV remote and turned on the wall-mounted screen. The hospital channel flicked to a news network where a panel of commentators sat around a desk, arguing animatedly. The caption below read, "Hale's billions. Does security guard deserve massive fortune?" "This is unprecedented," one pundit was saying. "We're talking about roughly $20 billion. No one gives away that kind of money on impulse." "She took a bullet for him," another countered. "What's the price tag on a human life? But does one heroic act justify—" Dr. Matthews muted the TV but left it running. Jessa stared at the screen, watching footage of herself collapsing at the expo play on repeat. Her head was spinning. "The media arrived within minutes of his announcement," the doctor explained. "We've had to increase security throughout the hospital. There are protesters and supporters gathered outside." As if on cue, the chants from the street became clearer through her third-floor window. Jessa could make out competing voices. "Share the wealth," followed by, "Hero, hero." "This can't be real," Jessa whispered, her training kicking in as she automatically assessed threats and exits, a habit that had saved Vincent's life hours earlier. "He can't just give me billions of dollars. That's insane." "The legal and financial experts on TV seem to agree with you," Dr. Matthews said, nodding toward the screen where the muted debate continued. "They've been discussing the logistics and legality of it all day." A commotion in the hallway drew their attention. Through the door's window, Jessa could see photographers trying to get shots past the security guards. Signs were visible in their hands. "American hero" and "Greed kills" among them. "We've had to turn away dozens of reporters," the doctor said. "Everyone wants the first interview with the $20 billion woman. That's what they're calling you now." Jessa closed her eyes, feeling overwhelmed. Her shoulder throbbed, but it was nothing compared to the weight of what she was hearing. She had done what any good security professional would do: protect their charge. She hadn't wanted recognition, let alone a fortune that could buy a small country. "I never wanted any of this," she whispered, opening her eyes to see her face plastered across the TV screen again. The footage had changed to her military photos, showing her in uniform during her Army MP days. They were discussing her background now, dissecting her life for the hungry 24-hour news cycle. The reality of her new situation hit her like a second bullet. She wasn't just Jessa Quinn anymore, the quiet, competent security specialist who preferred staying in the background. She had become the center of a national storm, thrust into a spotlight she never sought. Outside, the chants grew louder. Her heart monitor continued its steady beeping. On the TV, silent figures argued about her worth. And Jessa lay there, trapped between gratitude for being alive and a deep, unsettling knowledge that her life would never be the same. Vincent Hale sat alone in his home office, facing the large monitor mounted on the wall. The evening sun cast long shadows across the room as 15 angry faces stared back at him through the video conference. Each board member's expression ranged from barely contained fury to open disgust. "This is absolutely unprecedented," Gerald Morton, the board's chairman, said through clenched teeth. His face had turned an alarming shade of red. "You can't simply announce the transfer of $20 billion on a whim, Vincent. The shareholders are in an uproar." Vincent remained still, his fingers laced together on his desk. The weight of the day pressed down on his shoulders, but he kept his posture straight, refusing to show weakness. "I made my decision, Gerald." "A decision?" Patricia Reynolds, another board member, practically spat the words. "This isn't like choosing what tie to wear. You've potentially destabilized the entire company. Our stock dropped 12% in 3 hours." The screen showed their faces in neat little boxes, like a digital jury ready to pass judgment. Vincent had sat through countless video conferences before, but never one where he felt so alone, or so certain of his choice. "Have you completely lost your mind?" Thomas Chen leaned closer to his camera. "This security guard, this Jessa Quinn, she was doing her job. That's what we pay her for. You don't owe her your entire fortune." Vincent's jaw tightened. "She took a bullet meant for me. And she'll be well compensated through our standard protocols." Gerald cut in. Insurance, hazard pay, a generous bonus, all reasonable responses. But this is madness. "The press is having a field day," Patricia added, waving a tablet at her camera. "Social media is exploding. Half the world thinks you're a saint, the other half thinks you've gone insane, and our legal team says your announcement was completely unauthorized." Vincent watched as his board members nodded in agreement. These were people he'd worked with for years, people who'd helped build Hale Technologies into what it was today. But right now, they felt like strangers. "The transfer announcement is invalid," Gerald declared. "We'll issue a retraction immediately. Blame it on emotional trauma from the attack. The media will eat that up, and everything can go back to—" "No." Vincent's voice was quiet but firm. "I beg your pardon?" "I said no." Vincent leaned forward. "I won't retract my statement." The board erupted in protests. Multiple voices talked over each other, their faces growing more animated on the screen. Vincent waited until Gerald raised his hand for silence. "Vincent," Gerald said, trying to sound reasonable. "You must understand our position. This isn't just about the money. Though $20 billion is no small matter, this is about stability, leadership, the future of Hale Technologies. I understand perfectly." Vincent's voice remained calm. "And my decision stands." Patricia's face twisted with anger. "Then you leave us no choice. The board will take legal action to prevent this transfer. We'll challenge your mental competency if necessary." Vincent felt a familiar coldness settle over him, the same detachment he'd cultivated through years of tough business decisions. But this time it was different. This time, he knew he was right. "Do what you have to do," he said simply. "Vincent, for God's sake," Gerald pleaded, "at least tell us why. What's really behind this?" The question hung in the air. Vincent could feel their eyes on him, waiting for an explanation that would make sense of his apparent madness. But how could he explain what he'd seen today? How could he tell them about Nathan? "I have nothing more to say," Vincent replied. He reached for his mouse. "Good evening." "Vincent, don't you dare!" Gerald's protest was cut short as Vincent ended the call. The screen went dark, leaving Vincent alone in his dimming office. He sat there for a long moment, listening to the quiet hum of his computer and the distant sounds of Phoenix traffic below his penthouse. Slowly he turned his chair toward the credenza behind his desk. Among the awards and achievements that marked his career sat a single silver frame. Vincent picked it up, his fingers tracing the edge as he studied the photograph inside. 2 boys stood arm in arm, grinning at the camera. The older one, Nathan, had his other arm in a playful headlock around young Vincent's neck. They were both wearing baseball uniforms, covered in dirt from a game well played. Their father had taken the picture just weeks before the accident that would tear their family apart. Vincent stared at Nathan's face, so full of joy and innocence. How had that happy kid become the man who tried to kill him today? The same man who disappeared years ago, leaving behind only rumors and regrets? The photo blurred slightly as Vincent's eyes stung. He blinked hard, setting the frame back down with careful precision. The board was right about one thing: he was acting on emotion. But they were wrong about which emotions were driving him. Standing up, Vincent walked to the window. The city lights were coming on, twinkling against the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, in a hospital room, lay the woman who'd saved his life. Jessa Quinn had no idea what she'd really stepped into today. She deserved to know the truth about Nathan, about why she'd really been shot, about all of it. Vincent pulled out his phone and dialed his driver. "Bring the car around," he said quietly. "We're going to the hospital." As he gathered his coat, Vincent glanced one last time at the photograph. 2 brothers, once inseparable, now on opposite sides of a gun. Jessa Quinn had unknowingly stepped into the middle of a family tragedy, and Vincent owed her more than just his fortune. He owed her the truth. The elevator dinged its arrival, ready to take him down to the waiting car. Vincent straightened his tie, squaring his shoulders against whatever would come next. The board could threaten all they wanted. Some things were more important than money or power. Some things were worth any price. The morning sun filtered through the hospital window, casting long shadows across the sterile floor. Vincent Hale stood in the corridor, flanked by 4 security guards in dark suits. His own reflection in the window showed a man who hadn't slept. Dark circles under his eyes, his usually immaculate suit slightly rumpled. "Mr. Hale," the nurse said softly. "Miss Quinn is awake and stable. You can see her now." Vincent nodded, then turned to his security team. "Wait here. Sir, we strongly advise—" "Wait, here." His tone left no room for argument. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beep of monitors. Jessa Quinn lay propped up against white pillows, her normally athletic frame looking small in the hospital bed. Despite the ordeal she'd been through, her eyes were alert and focused as they met his. "Mr. Hale," she said, her voice slightly hoarse. "Please, call me Vincent." He hesitated by the door. "May I come in?" She gestured to the chair beside her bed. "It's your hospital. I assume you own it." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Actually, no. Though after yesterday's announcement, The media probably thinks I own half of Phoenix." He settled into the chair, noticing how she tensed slightly at the mention of his broadcast. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got shot." She managed a weak smile. "But the doctors say I'll recover fully. Though I'm more concerned about why you're here at 7 in the morning with an army of security outside my door." Vincent leaned forward, clasping his hands together. The weight of what he needed to say pressed down on him like a physical burden. "What I'm about to tell you, it will change everything. And you deserve to know the truth, especially after what you did for me." Jess's expression grew serious. "This is about the shooter, isn't it?" "Yes." Vincent took a deep breath. "The man who tried to kill me yesterday was my brother, Nathan." The words hung in the air between them. Jess's eyes widened slightly, but she remained silent, waiting for him to continue. "Nathan was a decorated Army Ranger. Multiple tours, countless commendations. He was everything I wasn't. Brave, principled, honest." Vincent's voice grew thick with emotion. "But 3 years ago he discovered something about our family's company. Something that changed him." "What did he find?" Jessa asked quietly. "Corruption. Deep, systemic corruption that went back decades. Defense contracts built on bribes. Environmental regulations ignored for profit. People silenced." Vincent's hands tightened until his knuckles went white. "When Nathan brought the evidence to our father, he expected him to be outraged, to help expose it. All. Instead, they tried to buy his silence." Jessa finished, her law enforcement training helping her see the pattern. "Worse, they tried to destroy him. Fabricated evidence of mental instability, leaked false stories to the press, froze his assets." Vincent stood abruptly, pacing the small room. "By the time I learned what was happening, it was too late. Nathan had disappeared. Everyone assumed he'd had a breakdown, gone off the grid. But I knew better. He was planning something." Jessa shifted in her bed, wincing slightly at the movement. "And yesterday was what he was planning?" Vincent turned to face her. "Yesterday was just the beginning. Nathan won't stop until he exposes everything, or dies trying. And now..." He gestured helplessly at her. "Now you're in the middle of it all. The whole world thinks you're about to become a billionaire. You're no longer just the woman who saved my life. You're a target." "For Nathan?" "For everyone. The board is already moving to block the transfer. The media is digging into your past. And Nathan..." Vincent returned to his chair, his voice dropping. "Nathan will see you as either an obstacle or an opportunity. Either way, he'll come for you." Jessa was quiet for a long moment, processing everything she'd heard. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady. "Your brother. He was a good man once. Something specific must have pushed him over the edge, something beyond just discovering corruption." Vincent looked up, surprised by her insight. "Yes, I've wondered that myself." "Then that's where we start." Jessa's expression was determined, despite her pale complexion. "We need to find out what really happened to Nathan. What turned a decorated soldier into someone who would try to kill his own brother?" "We?" Vincent asked. "Yes, we. I'm already involved, Mr. Hale. I took a bullet that was meant for you. And if what you're saying is true, there's more at stake here than just your family drama." Vincent studied her face, seeing the same quiet strength that had made her step in front of a bullet yesterday. "It will be dangerous. Nathan is highly trained, and he's not the only threat we'll face. I was military police for 8 years." Jessa replied. "I can handle danger. What I can't handle is knowing there's a truth that needs to be uncovered and doing nothing about it." A noise in the hallway made them both look towards the door. The moment of decision had arrived. "All right," Vincent said finally. "We work together, but we do this carefully. Nathan is out there somewhere, watching, planning his next move. Jessa nodded, her expression grim but resolved. Then let's find out what turned your brother from a hero into a man who shoots at innocent people. Because somewhere in that story is the truth that could stop all this before anyone else gets hurt. The morning sun had climbed higher now, filling the room with light that seemed at odds with the dark conversation that had just taken place. Outside, the world continued to buzz about Vincent's shocking announcement and Jessa's heroic act. But inside this quiet hospital room, two people had just formed an alliance that would lead them into dangers neither of them could fully imagine, all in search of a truth that could either save or destroy them all. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the hospital room as Dr. Chen reviewed Jessa's discharge papers one final time. Her fingers traced the bandages beneath her hospital gown, the soreness a constant reminder of how close she'd come to death. The wound is healing well, Dr. Chen said, making notes on her tablet. But you need to take it easy for at least 2 weeks, no strenuous activity, and change the dressing twice daily. Jessa nodded, already eyeing the fresh clothes that hospital staff had brought in, dark joggers and a loose-fitting sweater that wouldn't irritate her injury. What about the pain? I'm prescribing medication, but use it sparingly. The doctor handed her a white paper bag. And remember, just because you can move doesn't mean you should overdo it. A gentle knock interrupted them. Vincent stood in the doorway, his usual crisp suit replaced by more casual attire, though Jessa suspected even his casual clothes cost more than her monthly rent. The car is ready, he said quietly. Security's cleared a path through the crowd. Jessa's stomach tightened at the word crowd. She'd heard them through her window all morning, the chants, the arguments, the constant buzz of helicopter news crews circling overhead. A nurse helped her dress while Dr. Chen gave final instructions. Each movement sent small jolts of pain through her chest, but Jessa kept her expression neutral. Years of military training had taught her how to compartmentalize discomfort. Ready? Vincent asked as she emerged from the bathroom. As I'll ever be. They moved through the hospital corridors, flanked by 4 security guards in dark suits. Staff members stopped to stare. Some smiled encouragingly. Others whispered behind raised hands. Jessa focused on putting one foot in front of the other. The noise hit her first when they reached the lobby, a wall of sound that made her instinctively want to retreat. Through the glass doors, she could see hundreds of people pressed against police barriers. Signs waved above the crowd. Hero nurse deserves every penny, and corporate greed kills, and marry me, Jessa! Stay close to me, Vincent murmured. Don't engage with anyone. Head straight for the black SUV. The doors opened. The roar became deafening. Miss Quinn, over here. Jessa, how does it feel to be a billionaire? What are you going to do with the money? Did you plan this with Vincent Hale? Camera flashes exploded like strobe lights. Microphones thrust toward her face. The security team formed a tight box around them, shoulders touching as they moved through the narrow corridor of police barriers. Jessa kept her eyes forward, trying to ignore the chaos. 20 feet to the car. 15. 10. She could feel her wound protesting each step, but she refused to show weakness. Finally, the SUV door opened. Vincent helped her inside, then slid in beside her. The door thunked shut, muffling the noise instantly. Tinted windows sealed them away from the grasping crowds. As they pulled away from the curb, Jessa let out a shaky breath. Is it always like this for you? Sometimes worse, Vincent replied, his expression grim. But you'll be safe at the house. I've arranged everything. They wound through downtown Phoenix, and Jessa couldn't help staring at the digital billboards that seemed to mock her at every intersection. Phoenix hero nurse set to inherit billions. Hale Industries stock plummets after CEO's shock announcement. Who is Jessa Quinn? Her own face looked down at her from 30 feet high, a photo probably pulled from her social media. She quickly looked away. The safe house is about 40 minutes outside the city, Vincent explained, pulling out a tablet. We've installed state-of-the-art security systems. Armed guards patrol the perimeter 24/7. No one gets in or out without clearance. Jessa nodded, trying to focus on the practical details instead of the surreal situation. What about communications? Secured satellite phones only. No personal devices allowed. They're too easy to track. He handed her a slim black phone. This connects directly to security and to me. Your family can reach you through a special monitored line. The city gradually gave way to desert landscape. Saguaro cacti stood like sentinels against the darkening sky. Jessa watched the sun sink towards the horizon, painting the clouds in shades of purple and orange. I have Nathan's military records, Vincent said after a long silence. Personnel files, mission reports, psychological evaluations, everything up until he disappeared. We'll go through them tonight. Looking for what exactly? The moment everything changed, there has to be something, some mission or incident that made him vulnerable to whatever he discovered later. Vincent's hands clenched in his lap. The brother I knew wouldn't have become this person without a reason. The SUV turned onto a private road, winding up into the foothills. High walls appeared, topped with razor wire. A heavy gate slid open as they approached. The safe house wasn't what Jessa expected. Instead of a fortress, it was a sprawling, ranch-style home that blended naturally into the desert landscape. But she noticed the subtle signs of security. Cameras disguised as rocks, motion sensors hidden in native plants, reinforced windows that probably cost more than most cars. As they pulled up to the front door, the sun finally disappeared behind the mountains. Security lights clicked on automatically, bathing the property in a soft glow. "Welcome home," Vincent said quietly. "At least for now." Jessa stepped out of the SUV, wincing slightly. The desert air was cooling rapidly, carrying the scent of creosote and sage. In the distance, coyotes began their evening chorus. Vincent led her inside, where more guards stood at attention. The interior was surprisingly comfortable. Leather furniture, southwestern art, a massive stone fireplace. But Jessa knew it was all carefully chosen to create an illusion of normalcy in what was essentially a highly sophisticated panic room. "The files are in the study," Vincent said, gesturing down a hallway. "Once you're settled, we can start going through them. Every page might hold the key to understanding what happened to Nathan and why you ended up with a bullet in your chest." Jessa nodded, squaring her shoulders despite the pain. She hadn't asked for any of this, the fortune, the fame, the danger. But she was here now, and her military training had taught her that sometimes the only way forward was through. The sun's last rays faded from the windows as night settled over the desert. Somewhere out there, Nathan Hale was watching, waiting, planning his next move. And in this fortress in the wilderness, his brother and the woman who'd taken his bullet prepared to uncover the truth that had turned him from hero to hunter. The study's mahogany desk groaned under the weight of scattered files and documents. Vincent had boxes of records stacked on every surface, their contents spilling onto plush leather chairs. The room smelled of old paper and coffee from the pot brewing in the corner. Jessa sat cross-legged on the floor, her back against a bookshelf. She'd changed into comfortable clothes, soft grey sweatpants, and an oversized Navy SEAL t-shirt that belonged to her brother. The fabric was worn thin from years of washing, but it helped her feel centered as she sifted through Nathan Hale's military career. "His service record is impressive," she noted, scanning a commendation. 3 tours in Afghanistan, Silver Star for Valor, Distinguished Service Medal. She looked up at Vincent, who paced near the fireplace. "Your brother was exceptional." Vincent paused, picking up a framed photo from the mantel. "He was. Top of his class at West Point. Could have been a general someday." His fingers traced the edge of the frame, until the court-martial. Jessa reached for another file, this one marked with red classification stamps. "Tell me about that day. What do you remember?" Vincent sank into an armchair, the leather creaking. "The board called an emergency meeting. Said Nathan had gone rogue during a classified operation. That he'd disobeyed direct orders, endangered his team." He shook his head. "It happened so fast. Within 48 hours he was stripped of rank and discharged. And you believed them. I was young, naive." Vincent's voice carried the weight of regret. The board presented evidence, mission logs, witness statements, psychological evaluations claiming PTSD had made him unstable. Jessa spread the court-martial, documents across the floor in chronological order. Her MP training kicked in as she studied dates, signatures, chain of command. Something's not right here. Vincent joined her on the floor, careful not to disturb her organized layout. "What do you see?" "The timeline's wrong." She pointed to several documents. "Look, the psychological evaluation is dated 3 days before the incident it claims triggered Nathan's breakdown. And these witness statements—" She shuffled papers. "They're identical, word for word in places. That never happens with genuine testimony." Vincent leaned closer, brow furrowed. "Could be a clerical error with the dates. One mistake, maybe. But this whole file is full of inconsistencies." Jessa pulled out more papers. The board's emergency meeting was scheduled before the incident supposedly occurred. They were ready to move against Nathan before anything happened. The grandfather clock in the corner struck 11, its deep chimes echoing through the quiet house. Outside, crickets chirped in the desert darkness. "Here," Jessa said suddenly, holding up a yellowed document. "Your father's original succession plan. Nathan was named primary heir to both the company leadership and family fortune." Vincent took the paper with trembling hands. "I never saw this. The board told me father changed his mind before he died, that he'd recognized Nathan was too unstable for the responsibility." They lied. Jessa's voice was gentle but firm. "They manufactured that whole court-martial to discredit Nathan and remove him from succession. The question is why?" Vincent stood abruptly, running his hands through his hair. Nathan must have discovered something. Something big enough that the board was willing to destroy his entire career to silence him. Jessa gathered the suspicious documents into a separate pile. "We need to track down these supposed witnesses and find the real mission logs from that operation, not these sanitized versions. The board will have buried anything incriminating," Vincent said. "But maybe—" He crossed to a filing cabinet and pulled out more boxes. "These are father's personal records. He kept copies of everything, especially in his final years when he grew suspicious of the board." They worked in comfortable silence for the next hour, the only sounds the rustling of paper and occasional sips of coffee. Jessa found herself studying Vincent when he wasn't looking, the way his shoulders tensed when he found something troubling, how he absently rubbed his thumb across his father's signature. "You're good at this," Vincent said suddenly, breaking the quiet. "The investigative work." "Military police training," she explained. "You learn to spot patterns, inconsistencies, and people are surprisingly bad at maintaining lies across multiple documents." Vincent nodded, then winced as he stretched his neck. "I should have questioned things back then. Should have stood up for Nathan." "You can't change the past," Jessa said softly. "But you're trying to make it right now. That counts for something." The clock struck midnight, and Jessa couldn't suppress a yawn. The pain medication was wearing off, making her shoulder throb. Vincent noticed immediately. "We should stop for tonight. You need rest to heal." Just a little longer. Jessa protested, but another yawn betrayed her. The files will still be here in the morning. Vincent insisted, standing and offering her a hand up. We've made good progress. Jessa accepted his help, grimacing slightly as she rose. First thing tomorrow, I want to map out everyone involved in that court-martial. Follow the paper trail, see where it leads. Vincent nodded, gathering the most important documents into a secure folder. I'll have security do background checks on all the witnesses, see where they are now. At the study door, Jessa paused. Thank you for trusting me with this. I know it can't be easy, digging up painful family history. Thank you for helping me see the truth. Vincent replied quietly. Even if it's not the truth I wanted to find. They parted ways in the hallway, Jessa to her secure suite, Vincent to his own quarters. But both knew sleep would be elusive, their minds racing with questions about Nathan Hale and the conspiracy that had torn apart his life. The desert night wrapped around the safe house like a blanket, hiding secrets in its shadows. But inside, two people had begun to unravel a web of lies that had held for years. And somewhere out there, Nathan waited, perhaps hoping someone would finally discover the truth he'd tried to expose so long ago. The morning sun cast long shadows across the desert landscape as Vincent's armored SUV wound through the quiet suburban streets of Mesa, Arizona. Jessa watched subdivisions blur past her window, each identical house a stark contrast to the mounting revelations about Nathan's past. Security sweep came back clean, Vincent said, checking his phone. No suspicious activity around the safe house overnight. Jessa nodded, adjusting her sling. The pain in her shoulder had dulled to a manageable ache, but the morning's medication made her head feel slightly fuzzy. Did Colonel Reeves seem surprised when you called? Very. Said he hadn't spoken about Nathan in years. Vincent turned onto a tree-lined street of modest ranch homes. This is it, 423 Saguaro Lane. The house looked exactly like its neighbors, tan stucco, terracotta roof tiles, desert landscaping. Only a small American flag by the door and carefully trimmed hedges hinted at its military resident. Vincent's security team did a quick sweep of the perimeter before giving them the all-clear. As they approached the front door, it opened to reveal Colonel James Reeves, tall, weathered, with steel-grey hair and alert eyes that took in every detail of his visitors. Mr. Hale, he said carefully, then looked at Jessa. And Ms. Quinn, please, come in. The interior was neat but lived in, with family photos and military memorabilia lining the walls. Reeves led them to a sunny kitchen that smelled of fresh coffee. I have to admit, he said, pouring 3 cups, I never expected to have this conversation, especially not with you, Mr. Hale. Call me Vincent, please. Vincent accepted his cup. We're here about Nathan. The colonel's hand stilled briefly. I figured as much after the shooting made the news. He gestured for them to sit at the kitchen table. I recognized his work. Clean shot, perfect positioning. If Ms. Quinn hadn't moved so quickly... He trailed off, studying Jessa. That was impressive reaction time, by the way. Thank you, sir. Jessa wrapped her good hand around her coffee mug. But we're more interested in what happened to Nathan during his last deployment. Reeves' expression tightened. That's ancient history. Not to Nathan, Vincent said quietly. And not to us, now that we've found irregularities in the court-martial records. A long silence filled the kitchen. Outside, a lawnmower droned, and wind chimes tinkled in the morning breeze. Finally, Reeves sighed heavily. I've carried this for years, he said. The guilt of not speaking up, not protecting one of my own. He stood and went to a cabinet, returning with a thick manila envelope. I kept copies. Never felt right, destroying everything. The documents he spread across the table told a damning story. Falsified mission reports, coached witness statements, carefully orchestrated evidence pointing to Nathan as the sole responsible party for a failed operation. The real mission was to investigate corporate corruption. Reeves explained. Defense contracts, missing supplies, money disappearing into shell companies. Nathan's team got too close to some powerful people, including several with connections to the Hale Industries board. Vincent's face had gone pale. Our board members were involved in military corruption? Some of them. Nathan discovered the links, gathered proof, but before he could report it. Reeves shook his head. The operation went sideways. 3 good men died, and suddenly there was a mountain of evidence suggesting Nathan had compromised the mission. They set him up, Jessa said softly. Completely. Professional job, too. They knew exactly which regulations to cite, which procedures to manipulate. By the time I realized what was happening, the court-martial was already in motion. Reeves stared into his coffee. I tried to help quietly, but they had eyes everywhere. Any officer who questioned the official story found themselves suddenly facing career problems. Vincent leaned forward. Why didn't Nathan fight back? Tell his side? They threatened to expand the investigation to his whole unit. Good soldiers would have lost everything. Reeves met Vincent's eyes. Your brother sacrificed himself to protect his men, but watching the system he believed in betray him like that, it broke something in him. Jessa sorted through the documents with practiced efficiency. These would be enough to reopen the case. Maybe, Reeves said, if you can keep them safe. The people behind this, they've had years to entrench themselves, build more power. They won't let these secrets come to light easily. We have to try, Vincent said firmly. For Nathan's sake. The colonel studied them both. You're either very brave or very foolish, probably both. He gathered the documents and handed them to Jessa. Be careful. Watch your backs. These people play for keeps. They thanked him and left, the morning sun now high overhead. The drive back was quiet, both of them processing the weight of what they'd learned. I never knew, Vincent said finally, his voice rough. All these years I thought Nathan had simply lost his way. The board used you too, Jessa pointed out. They manipulated everyone to protect themselves, and now they're probably planning to do it again. Vincent's hands tightened on the steering wheel. We need to move carefully with this information. Jessa nodded, looking down at the envelope in her lap. Inside was proof of corruption that stretched from corporate boardrooms to military courts, a web of lies that had destroyed Nathan's life and now threatened to entangle them as well. The safe house appeared ahead, its security features hardly visible in the bright desert day. But as they pulled into the gated drive, both felt the weight of Reeves' warning. The truth they sought would not come without a fight, and powerful people would do anything to keep their secrets buried. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the safe house driveway as Vincent and Jessa returned from their meeting with Colonel Reeves. Security personnel opened the gates, and Vincent guided the SUV to a stop, but neither made a move to get out right away. Vincent stared through the windshield, his hand still gripping the steering wheel. I keep thinking about what Reeves said, about Nathan protecting his men. His voice was quiet, almost fragile. All these years I thought I knew who my brother was, who I was. Jessa watched him carefully, noting the tension in his shoulders, the way his usual mask of control had started to crack. Let's go inside, she suggested gently. We both need some water, and my shoulder could use a break. They made their way into the house, where Jessa sank gratefully onto the living room couch, while Vincent brought them both water. The room felt safer somehow, its thick walls and security systems creating a bubble where truth could finally emerge. Vincent paced the length of the room, his movements restless. You know, when I made that announcement about giving you my fortune, people assumed I'd lost my mind. He gave a hollow laugh. Maybe I did, but sitting here now, knowing what we know... He stopped pacing and turned to face her. Money isn't the answer. It never was. Jessa set her water glass down, carefully. What do you mean? I've been thinking about what real change looks like. Vincent sat down across from her, leaning forward with an intensity she hadn't seen before. Not just throwing money at problems, but creating lasting reform. The kind that prevents people like Nathan from being betrayed by the systems meant to protect them. That's a big goal, Jessa said carefully. It is, but that's what your mother would have wanted, isn't it? Jessa's breath caught. They hadn't discussed her mother before, though Vincent had obviously read her personnel file. Vincent continued, his voice softening. I read about her work. 20 years teaching ethics at the police academy, developing programs to help officers serve with integrity. She believed in changing systems from within. Tears pricked at Jessa's eyes. She did. She always said that real change happens one person at a time, one choice at a time. What if we honored that? Vincent stood again, energy coursing through him. Instead of just transferring wealth, what if we created something meaningful? A national foundation in your mother's name, dedicated to ethics reform and protecting whistleblowers across corporate and military sectors? Jessa stared at him, seeing for the first time the person beneath years of careful control. His eyes were bright with purpose, his usual guarded expression replaced by genuine hope. You're serious about this? She said softly. Completely. Vincent knelt beside her chair, his voice urgent. The money I promised you, it could fund this for generations. Create real oversight, support people who stand up against corruption, provide legal protection for truth-tellers like Nathan. Your mother's values could shape institutions long after we're gone. Tears spilled down Jessa's cheeks. She would have loved that. She whispered. She always said money wasn't as important as doing what's right. She was a wise woman. Vincent's own eyes were suspiciously bright. I think I needed to meet someone like you, someone who lives those values, to remember what matters. They spent the next several hours at the dining room table, drafting mission statements and organizational structures. Vincent's business expertise merged with Jessa's understanding of ethics and integrity, creating something neither could have envisioned alone. The Margaret Quinn Foundation for Ethics and Justice. Vincent read from their notes. Dedicated to promoting institutional integrity and protecting those who defend it. With an emphasis on military and corporate reform. Jessa added, massaging her sore shoulder. And specific support for whistleblowers and their families. Vincent was already making calls to his legal team, setting the machinery in motion to transfer funds and establish the foundation. His voice carried a new authority, not the cold power he'd wielded before, but something warmer and more certain. As evening settled around the safe house, they ordered dinner and continued working. Jessa noticed how Vincent's whole demeanor had changed. The rigid set of his shoulders had relaxed, and occasional smiles softened his features. I haven't felt like this since I was a kid, he admitted, setting down his phone after another legal call. Back when Nathan and I still believed we could change the world. Maybe you still can, Jessa said. Just not in the way you originally thought. Vincent looked around at their scattered papers, mission statements, organizational charts, reform proposals. You know what's strange? For years I've run one of the largest companies in the world. But this... He gestured at their work. This feels more real than anything I've done before. Because it is real, Jessa said simply. This isn't about power or money. It's about doing what's right. Vincent nodded, a genuine smile transforming his face. My board is going to hate this even more than the original plan. Good, Jessa said, making him laugh. As night fell outside, they continued refining their plans, energized by shared purpose. The foundation was taking shape, not just as a memorial to Jessa's mother, but as a force for the kind of change both of them believed in. Vincent looked up from his laptop, where he'd been reviewing legal documents. In the soft lamplight, Jessa could see the peace in his expression, a look she suspected had been missing for many years. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For showing me another way, for helping me remember who I wanted to be before everything got so complicated. He closed the laptop, his movements deliberate. I think this is the first time I've felt hopeful since Nathan and I were children. Jessa smiled, understanding exactly what he meant. In the midst of danger and uncertainty, they had found something worth fighting for, something bigger than themselves. Her mother would have approved. The morning sun cast long shadows across the safe house's manicured lawn. Jessa inhaled deeply, savoring the crisp autumn air. Her shoulder still ached where the bullet had grazed her, but the pain felt distant now, overshadowed by the sense of purpose she and Vincent had discovered the night before. 2 security guards flanked her, their eyes constantly scanning the quiet suburban street. One of them, Mike, checked his radio for the hourly update, while his partner Dave maintained his vigilant watch of the perimeter. Beautiful morning, isn't it? Jessa said, stretching carefully to avoid aggravating her injury. The guards nodded, but remained focused on their duty. She understood their caution. After yesterday's breakthrough with Vincent, they couldn't afford to let their guard down. A white maintenance van rolled slowly down the street, its faded logo barely visible in the morning light. Dave's hand moved instinctively to his weapon, but the van looked ordinary enough. Just another service vehicle in an upscale neighborhood. The van stopped. Everything happened in seconds. The side door slid open with a metallic screech. 3 men in tactical gear emerged, their movements precise and practiced. Mike reached for his radio, but a burst from a silenced weapon caught him in the leg. Dave managed to fire twice before being overwhelmed. Jessa's military training kicked in. She turned to run, but her injured shoulder slowed her crucial half-second. Strong arms grabbed her from behind. She fought back, driving her elbow into her attacker's solar plexus, but another figure appeared with a cloth pressed against her face. The sweet chemical smell made her head spin. No, she tried to say, but her voice wouldn't work. The world tilted sideways. Inside the house, Vincent was reviewing the Foundation documents when he heard the muffled sounds of struggle. He rushed to the window just in time to see the van's doors closing. His security team burst through the front door, weapons drawn, but they were too late. The van accelerated away, leaving only tire marks on the pavement and 2 injured guards. Vincent ran outside, his heart pounding against his ribs. Mike was already calling for backup, his face twisted in pain. Dave lay unconscious but breathing. Vincent's eyes found the dropped radio on the grass, next to scuff marks that told the story of Jessa's struggle. His phone buzzed in his pocket, an unknown number. With trembling fingers, he opened the message. A video began to play. Jessa sat tied to a chair in what looked like an abandoned warehouse. Her head lolled slightly, drugged but conscious. A bruise was forming on her cheek where she'd fought back. The camera panned across her face before a familiar voice spoke off-screen. "Hello, brother." Nathan's voice carried years of bitterness. "Look what I found. Your billion-dollar bodyguard. The woman you'd give everything away for." A hand appeared in frame, roughly lifting Jessa's chin. "If she's worth your billion-dollar confession, come prove it." The video ended. Vincent's knees hit the pavement. The phone slipped from his numb fingers as sirens wailed in the distance. All the hope they'd built, all their plans for change, shattered in moments by his brother's vengeance. "Sir!" One of his security team was speaking urgently into a radio. "We need a full lockdown. All available units. Track that van." But Vincent barely heard them. He stared at the spot where the van had been, where Jessa had stood just minutes ago, talking about the beautiful morning. His chest felt hollow, like something vital had been torn away. In the distance, the maintenance van merged onto the highway, carrying both Jessa and the last remnants of Vincent's rekindled hope into the unknown. The wail of approaching sirens grew louder, but Vincent remained on his knees, surrounded by the wreckage of their shattered plans and the weight of his brother's hatred. The morning sun continued to rise over the quiet suburban street, indifferent to the violence that had just unfolded, beneath its warm rays. "Sir." One of his security team touched his shoulder. "We need to get you inside. It's not safe out here." Vincent nodded mechanically, but his mind was trapped in the loop of Nathan's words. Come prove it. His brother had taken Jessa not just as revenge, but as a test, a brutal examination of Vincent's newfound conscience. The security team helped him to his feet and guided him back into the house. Emergency vehicles were arriving, their lights painting the walls in alternating red and blue. Vincent moved as if in a dream, his thoughts scattered between the foundation documents they'd worked on all night and the image of Jessa bound and drugged in that warehouse. He had failed to protect her. After everything she'd done, taking a bullet for him, helping him find his way back to his true self, he had failed her. The weight of that knowledge pressed down on him until he could barely breathe. The hope that had bloomed so brightly just hours ago lay in pieces around him, scattered like the morning dew under the rising sun. Vincent's hands shook as he dialed the first number. His voice cracked when he spoke to the 911 dispatcher, forcing himself to stay clear and focused, despite the panic clawing at his chest. "This is Vincent Hale. I need to report a kidnapping at 782 Oakwood Drive. The victim is Jessa Quinn." Within minutes, police cruisers converged on the safe house, their lights painting the morning sky in urgent flashes of red and blue. Vincent paced the living room, making call after call, his private security team, former military contacts, anyone who might help find her. Colonel Reeves arrived just as the police were setting up their command center. The older man's face was grim as he stepped through the door, his military bearing evident even in civilian clothes. "Tell me everything," Reeves said, cutting straight to the point. Vincent described the attack while police technicians worked to trace the video message. His security team had already pulled footage from their perimeter cameras, showing the maintenance van's approach and the swift, brutal efficiency of the attack. "Nathan's gotten better at tactical operations," Reeves observed, studying the grainy footage. "These weren't amateurs. He's built himself a team." Vincent ran his hands through his disheveled hair. "I should have had more security. I should have—" "Stop!" Reeves cut him off. "Guilt won't help her now. We need to work the problem." The colonel pulled out his phone and started making calls of his own. Within an hour, 3 of Jessa's former military police colleagues arrived, still wearing their civilian work clothes, but carrying themselves with unmistakable purpose. "Sarah Martinez," the first introduced herself. "Served with Jessa in Germany. These are Mike Chen and Tom Rodriguez. We're here to help." They transformed the safe house's dining room into an operations center. Maps spread across the table. Laptops, displaying traffic camera feeds. Phone calls to traffic control centers and security companies with cameras along possible escape routes. Vincent refused all suggestions to rest, working alongside them hour after hour. His eyes burned from staring at screens, tracking the van's path through Phoenix's morning traffic. Each time they lost it, someone found another camera angle, another glimpse of the vehicle weaving through side streets. "There!" Sarah pointed at a frame, enhancement software sharpening the image. "That's definitely our van. heading east on Industrial Avenue at 9:47 a.m. They tracked it further, each sighting building a clearer picture of its route. But at 11:32 a.m., the trail went cold near the old manufacturing district. Too many blind spots, Mike explained, frustration evident in his voice. Not enough cameras in that area. Vincent slammed his fist on the table. Then we search every building. I'll call in every private security firm in the state if I have to. Wait. Colonel Reeves had been studying the map quietly, his finger tracing the van's path. This route. It's deliberate. Nathan's not just hiding, he's sending a message. The colonel pulled up property records on his laptop. The old manufacturing district. The Hale family used to own several properties there before the company shifted to tech, including... He pointed to a large structure marked on the map. The original Hale Electronics factory, abandoned 15 years ago when your father moved operations overseas. Of course. Vincent breathed. Where else would Nathan go? The place where it all started, before the corruption, before the betrayals. Sarah studied the satellite view. Good defensive position, limited approaches, lots of cover. If I were setting up an ambush, that's where I'd do it. Then that's where we're going, Vincent said, his voice hard with determination. Colonel Reeves held up a hand. Not without a plan. Nathan will be expecting us. He'll have the building rigged, his team positioned. We need to be smart about this. They spent the next 2 hours planning, studying building layouts, and coordinating with local law enforcement. Vincent's security team prepped their gear, while Jessa's MP colleagues outlined tactical approaches. As dusk approached, they gathered in the safe house garage. 2 unmarked vans held their rescue team, a mix of private security, former military, and police tactical units. Vincent checked his protective vest for the 3rd time, ignoring the concerned looks from the others. Colonel Reeves pulled him aside. You don't have to go in personally. Let the professionals handle this. Vincent shook his head. He's my brother. This is between us. Jessa's only involved because of me. He took a deep breath. I have to face him. The colonel studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Just remember, Nathan isn't the same person you knew. Be prepared for anything. The garage door opened to reveal the purple-orange sky of sunset. Vincent climbed into the lead van, his heart pounding, but his mind clear. For the first time since the kidnapping, he felt a grim sense of purpose. Sarah checked her weapon one final time before speaking. We're going to get her back, Mr. Hale. Vincent nodded, his eyes fixed on the darkening horizon. Somewhere ahead, in an abandoned factory filled with ghosts of their family's past, his brother waited. And Jessa, brave, principled Jessa, was counting on them. The vans pulled out of the garage in formation, heading east toward the old manufacturing district. Vincent touched the foundation paperwork in his jacket pocket, a reminder of everything they'd hoped to build, everything they were fighting to preserve. Hold on, Jessa, he whispered. We're coming. The rescue team moved through the deepening twilight, carrying hope and determination with them into the gathering darkness. The time for planning was over. The time for action had come. The old Hale Electronics factory loomed against the night sky, a hulking shadow of rust and decay. Moonlight filtered through broken windows, casting strange patterns on crumbling concrete walls. Vincent crouched behind a loading dock with Colonel Reeves and the rescue team, studying the building's dark outline. 2 guards at the north entrance, Sarah whispered, lowering her night vision binoculars. Another pair walking the perimeter, professional mercenaries, judging by their movements. Vincent nodded, his throat tight. Somewhere in that decaying structure, his brother waited. And Jessa, brave, determined Jessa, was caught between them. The rescue team moved like ghosts through the shadows, neutralizing the exterior guards with swift efficiency. No shots fired, just quick takedowns and zip ties. Vincent's heart hammered against his Kevlar vest as they approached the entrance. Inside, the factory was a maze of old assembly lines and rusted machinery. Their footsteps echoed despite their care, breaking the heavy silence. Dust motes danced in the beams of their tactical lights. "Second floor," Colonel Reeves breathed, pointing to fresh scuff marks on the stairs. "They've been moving equipment up there." 3 floors up, in what had once been the factory's main office, Jessa Quinn sat tied to a metal chair. Her wrists were bound behind her, but her posture remained straight, dignified. She watched Nathan Hale pace before her, his movements sharp with barely contained energy. "You don't understand what he took from me," Nathan was saying, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "Everything I'd earned, my reputation, my future, my place in the family, gone because Vincent played along with their lies." Jessa kept her voice steady, gentle. "Help me understand, Nathan. Tell me what really happened." He whirled to face her, shadows dancing across his haunted features. "I discovered the board was embezzling funds through military contracts. When I threatened to expose them, they fabricated evidence, made it look like I was the corrupt one." His laugh was bitter. "And Vincent, my own brother, stood silent while they destroyed me." "That must have hurt deeply," Jessa said softly. "To lose your brother's trust along with everything else." Nathan's pacing slowed. "We were close once, you know, before the money and power poisoned everything." He stopped at the window, staring out at the city lights. "I just wanted to serve my country with honor, make our parents proud." "I believe you," Jessa said, "and I think Vincent needs to hear this truth from you directly." As if summoned by her words, the office door slowly opened. Vincent stepped through, hands raised, showing he was unarmed. Behind him, rescue team members secured the hallway, but remained outside. The brothers stared at each other across the dusty room. Years of pain and betrayal hung heavy in the air between them. "Hello, Nathan," Vincent said quietly. Nathan's hand dropped to his holstered weapon. "Stay back." "I'm not here to fight." Vincent took a careful step forward. "I'm here to listen, to understand what really happened." "Now you want to listen?" Nathan's voice cracked. "After 5 years of silence, after letting them destroy everything I'd built?" "I was wrong," Vincent said. "I believed their lies because it was easier than facing the truth about our company, about what we'd become." Jessa watched the exchange intently, noting the tremor in Nathan's hands, the raw pain in both brothers' eyes. "They showed me proof," Vincent continued. "Documents, testimony, all of it fabricated, I know that now. But I wanted to believe you were the corrupt one, because facing the board's evil meant facing my own cowardice." Nathan drew his weapon, pointing it at Vincent with shaking hands. "You were supposed to be my brother. You were supposed to stand by me." "I know." Vincent's voice broke. "I failed you, Nathan. Nothing I say can undo that betrayal, but I'm trying to make it right now." Tears streamed down Nathan's face as the gun wavered. Years of buried grief and rage boiled to the surface. "They took everything from me," he whispered. "Not everything," Jessa said gently. "You still have your honor, Nathan, your truth, and now you have the chance to reveal that truth to the world." The brothers stood frozen in their tragic tableau, Nathan trembling with his weapon raised, Vincent with his hands open in surrender, and Jessa between them, still working to bridge the chasm of pain that separated them. Moonlight spilled through the broken windows, illuminating the dust and shadows of their shared past. In that moment, the decay of the old factory seemed to mirror the corruption that had torn their family apart. The gun in Nathan's hands shook violently as grief overwhelmed his anger. His finger rested on the trigger, but his eyes held more sorrow than malice as he faced his brother across the years of silence and betrayal. The tension in the dusty factory office hung thick as morning fog. Vincent took another careful step toward his brother, his hand still raised in surrender. Moonlight caught the tears now flowing freely down Nathan's face, his gun trembling but still aimed. "Nathan." Vincent's voice was soft, gentle in a way Jessa had never heard before. "I was blind, so wrapped up in the company, in maintaining our image, that I couldn't see what was happening to my own brother." Nathan's jaw clenched, but something flickered in his eyes, a glimpse of the young soldier he'd once been, desperate for his family's understanding. "They showed me documents," Vincent continued, taking another small step. "Bank transfers, mission reports, all pointing to corruption. But I never questioned them, never looked deeper." His voice cracked with emotion. "I chose the easy path, believing you'd changed rather than facing the rot at the heart of our family's legacy." "You were my brother," Nathan whispered, the words raw with pain. "We used to tell each other everything. Remember those nights in the treehouse, planning our futures?" Vincent nodded, tears now streaming down his own face. "I remember. You wanted to serve with honor, like Dad. And I lost sight of what honor meant." Jessa watched the exchange from her chair, her bound hands tight behind her back, but her voice strong and clear. "Nathan, I've spent my career reading people, understanding their hearts, and I see the soldier you truly are, someone who chose right over easy, truth over profit." Nathan's gaze darted to her, the gun lowering slightly. "How can you know that? You don't know what I've done." "I know you could have killed Vincent at the expo," she said softly. "A soldier of your skill, that shot was meant to wound, to draw attention. You wanted the truth exposed, not blood spilled." A sob caught in Nathan's throat. Vincent seized this moment of vulnerability, closing the final distance between them. "I failed you, Nathan. As a brother, as a man, as the leader I was supposed to be. But I'm here now, asking for a chance to make it right." "The board," Nathan choked out. "They're still in power, still corrupting everything they touch." "Not anymore," Vincent promised. "Together we can expose them. Your evidence, my platform, we can finally bring the truth to light." The gun lowered another inch. "They'll fight back. They'll try to destroy us both." "Let them try," Vincent said firmly. "I'm done hiding from their corruption, done betraying my family for their profit." Jessa leaned forward in her chair, her voice gentle but urgent. "Nathan, I see the weight you've carried alone all these years, the pain of having your honor questioned, your truth buried. But look at your brother now. Really look at him. He's choosing you, choosing truth. Be the soldier I know you are, the one who stands for what's right, no matter the cost." Something broke in Nathan's expression. The gun clattered to the floor as his knees gave out. Vincent rushed forward, catching his brother before he could fall. The two men collapsed together, years of pain and grief pouring out in racking sobs. "I'm sorry," Vincent repeated, holding his brother tight. "I'm so sorry." The door burst open as police tactical units flooded in, weapons raised. But they lowered them quickly at the scene before them, the Hale brothers on their knees, clinging to each other like drowning men finding shore. Colonel Reeves stepped in, his face soft with understanding. He gestured to the medics waiting in the hall. "Let's get them both checked out." As medical personnel surrounded the brothers, others moved to free Jessa from her restraints. The rope burns on her wrists stung as circulation returned, but she barely noticed. Her eyes were fixed on Vincent and Nathan, seeing healing begin where there had been only wounds. Vincent looked up as she stood, his face tear-streaked but peaceful. He crossed to her in 3 quick strides and pulled her into a careful embrace, mindful of her still healing gunshot wound. "Thank you," he whispered against her hair, "for seeing the truth, for helping me find my brother again." Jessa leaned into his embrace, feeling the last of the tension leave her body. Around them, tactical teams secured the scene, medics tended to Nathan, and Colonel Reeves coordinated with local police. But in that moment, wrapped in Vincent's arms, Jessa felt only relief, not just for her own safety, but for the broken family beginning to mend before her eyes. "Sometimes," she murmured, "the bravest thing we can do is admit when we've been wrong and try to make it right." Vincent's arms tightened around her slightly. Through the broken windows, the first light of dawn began to paint the sky in shades of hope. The fluorescent lights of the Phoenix Police Department's interview room buzzed quietly overhead as dawn broke outside. Jessa sat in a cushioned chair, a fresh bandage visible beneath her collar where medics had checked her wound. Her hands wrapped around a paper cup of lukewarm coffee as Detective Sarah Martinez recorded her statement. "Take your time, Ms. Quinn," Detective Martinez said, her voice gentle. "Just walk us through what happened at the factory." Jessa's voice remained steady, though fatigue edged her words. "Nathan was hurting, but he never intended to harm me. He needed someone to listen, to understand the depth of what had been done to him." Across the hall, through the window, she could see Vincent in another interview room. He hadn't moved more than 20 feet from her since they'd arrived at the precinct 3 hours ago. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, but his posture remained alert, protective. "And you believe his claims about the corporate manipulation?" Detective Martinez asked, pen hovering over her notepad. "I do." Jessa nodded. "Colonel Reeves corroborated the timeline. The evidence we uncovered shows years of systematic corruption within the Hale Board of Directors. In the next room, 2 federal agents in crisp suits had joined Vincent's interview. Their presence signaled the gravity of his allegations against the board. Through the glass, Jessa watched him pull documents from his briefcase, copies of the evidence they'd gathered at the safe house. Dr. Helen Chen, the precinct's consulting psychiatrist, entered with a thick folder. "I've completed my initial evaluation of Nathan Hale," she announced to the small group of investigators gathering in the hallway. "The trauma patterns are extensive, consistent with prolonged psychological manipulation and targeted character assassination." Vincent excused himself from his interview and stepped into the hallway, his eyes finding Jessa's through the window. She nodded, letting him know she was okay. "Given the circumstances and Mr. Hale's military service record," Dr. Chen continued, "I'm recommending immediate transfer to the Veterans Psychiatric Care Center rather than detention. He needs specialized trauma treatment, not incarceration." "I'll cover all costs," Vincent said immediately. "Whatever he needs for full recovery." Detective Martinez made a note. "Given the evidence of corporate conspiracy and Mr. Nathan Hale's mental state, the DA's office is likely to agree with that course of action." The morning stretched into afternoon as federal agents cycled through, building their case. Vincent provided access to corporate servers, email archives, and financial records. The scope of the board's corruption began to emerge. Decades of buried evidence, manipulated trials, and destroyed lives. "They didn't just target Nathan," Vincent explained, his voice heavy. "They systematically removed anyone who questioned their methods or threatened their control. We found at least 7 other cases of character assassination and forced removal." Jessa winced as a nurse changed her bandage, the movement pulling at her healing wound. Vincent was at her side instantly. "Do you need pain medication?" he asked softly. "We can finish the statements later." She shook her head. "I'm okay. This needs to be done while the details are fresh." Federal Agent Cooper looked up from his laptop. "Ms. Quinn, Your military police background and first-hand experience with both Nathan Hale and the board's tactics make your testimony crucial. Are you willing to be a key witness as we build this case?" "Absolutely," Jessa said without hesitation. "These people need to be held accountable." By late afternoon, a convoy of dark SUVs arrived carrying senior FBI investigators. They set up a command center in the precinct's conference room, walls quickly filling with photos and timelines. The Hale Corporation's decades of secrets began unraveling thread by thread. Nathan was transferred under medical supervision to the psychiatric facility. Before leaving, he had a brief, emotional reunion with Vincent under doctor's supervision. "I'll make this right," Vincent promised, gripping his brother's hand. "Everything they took from you, your reputation, your honor, we'll restore it all." Nathan's eyes were clearer now, the fog of trauma beginning to lift under proper care. "Just tell the truth," he said quietly. "That's all I ever wanted." As the sun began to set, federal agents moved to secure the Hale Corporation's offices. Emergency warrants were served. Board members' phones began ringing as their assets were frozen. The machinery of justice, so long stalled, finally lurched into motion. Jessa watched the flurry of activity from a quiet corner where Vincent had insisted she rest. He sat beside her, his shoulder touching hers, a steady presence in the chaos. "I never thought this day would come," he said softly. "For so long, I was part of their system, blind to what they'd done to my own brother." "You chose to see the truth when it mattered most," Jessa replied. "That's what counts." Agent Cooper approached with fresh coffee for them both. "We're going to need you both to stay in protective custody until the board members are apprehended. Some of them have already attempted to flee the country." "Whatever you need." Vincent nodded. "But we stay together. Ms. Quinn's safety remains my priority." "Agreed," Cooper said. "We've arranged a secure location. Dr. Chen has also requested Ms. Quinn receive a full medical evaluation given the stress of the kidnapping." The precinct hummed with purpose as night fell. Federal teams coordinated raids across 3 states. Corporate records were seized. Whistleblowers, emboldened by the investigation, began calling in with new evidence. Detective Martinez updated them one final time before they left for the safe house. "Nathan's settling in well at the treatment center. The doctors are optimistic about his recovery now that the truth is known, and the DA has officially opened a formal inquiry into the entire Hale Corporation." Jessa felt Vincent relax slightly beside her at the news about his brother. His hand found hers, squeezing gently. "Ready to go?" he asked softly. She nodded, standing carefully. Her body ached from the events of the past 24 hours, but her spirit felt lighter. Justice, so long delayed, was finally beginning. As they walked out under heavy security, the night sky was clear and star-filled above Phoenix. Federal agents moved purposefully around them, coordinating the next phase of investigations. The Hale Corporation's facade of respectability was crumbling, and in its place, truth was emerging into the light. The morning sun filtered through the hospital-grade windows of the treatment facility's visiting room. A week had passed since the dramatic events at the factory, giving everyone time to heal, both physically and emotionally. Jessa sat across from Nathan Hale, noting how different he looked in just 7 days of proper care. The wild desperation had faded from his eyes, replaced by a quiet awareness. "I don't deserve your forgiveness," Nathan said softly, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. "After what I did to you? But you have it anyway," Jessa replied with gentle firmness. "My mother always taught me that forgiveness isn't about what people deserve. It's about breaking cycles of pain." Nathan's shoulders relaxed slightly at her words. "The doctors say I'm making progress. Understanding what was done to me doesn't excuse my actions, but it helps explain them. That's why we're launching the foundation. Jessa explained. To help others who've been victims of systemic abuse and corruption. To give them voices and resources before they reach breaking points. Across town, Vincent was experiencing his own transformation. In the Hale Corporation's main conference room, he stood before the newly appointed interim board members, his posture straight and purposeful. "My resignation as Chief Executive Officer will take effect in 30 days, he announced clearly. This isn't a retreat or an admission of wrongdoing. This is about choosing a new direction, one that honors truth and service above profit. The interim board members, carefully vetted professionals with records of ethical leadership, nodded in understanding. The federal investigation had revealed the depth of the previous board's corruption, leading to multiple arrests and asset seizures. Later that afternoon, Jessa and Vincent met at the downtown office space being renovated for the Jessa Quinn Foundation for Underserved Youth. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the fresh paint and new furnishings. The contractor says we'll be ready for tomorrow's opening ceremony, Vincent said, reviewing the checklist on his tablet. The media response has been overwhelming, in a good way this time. Jessa ran her hand along a newly installed desk. It still feels surreal. A month ago I was just doing my job. Now you're changing lives. Vincent finished softly, starting with mine. They toured the space together, reviewing the different areas, counseling rooms for youth mentorship, educational spaces for job training, meeting rooms for support groups. Each element had been carefully planned to serve communities often overlooked by traditional charitable organizations. The initial funding is secure, Vincent explained as they walked. $5 billion in an irrevocable trust, with strict oversight to prevent any manipulation. The foundation will be able to operate independently and expand its services nationwide. Jessa paused by a wall where workers were installing the foundation's mission statement in elegant lettering. Empowering youth through truth, service, and second chances. My mother would have loved this, she said quietly. She always believed in the power of giving people hope and tools to rebuild their lives. Vincent touched her shoulder gently. She raised an extraordinary daughter, one who showed me what real courage and compassion look like. The afternoon stretched into evening as they finalized details for the opening ceremony. Community leaders had rallied behind the foundation's mission, offering partnerships and support. Local youth organizations were already referring potential program participants. The first group of mentors completed their training today, Jessa reported, reviewing messages on her phone, including several veterans who understand trauma and recovery firsthand. Vincent nodded approvingly. And Nathan's doctors think he might be able to contribute to the program eventually, once his treatment progresses further. His experience could help others avoid similar paths. As night fell over Phoenix, they stood together at the windows overlooking the city lights. The foundation space hummed with purpose and possibility. "Are you nervous about tomorrow?" Vincent asked. Jessa considered the question. Not nervous exactly. More ready to turn everything that happened into something meaningful. The media will be intense, he warned. They're still fascinated by the story. The security officer who took a bullet for a billionaire and ended up launching a revolutionary foundation. She smiled slightly. Let them be fascinated. As long as it brings attention to the mission, I can handle the spotlight. The cleaning crew arrived to make final preparations for the morning's ceremony. Jessa and Vincent gathered their belongings, both feeling the weight and hope of the moment. Get some rest, Vincent advised as they headed to their respective vehicles, each still accompanied by security teams. Tomorrow we start changing lives. Jessa nodded, touching the foundation's logo newly emblazoned on the wall, a rising sun breaking through clouds. tomorrow we start making things right. Back at her temporary residence, Jessa reviewed her speech for the opening ceremony one final time. The words flowed from her heart, shaped by everything she'd learned about pain, forgiveness, and the possibility of redemption. Across town, Vincent sat in his home office, finalizing his own remarks for the ceremony. His phone buzzed with a message from Nathan's doctors. His brother had made it through another good day of therapy and sent his support for the Foundation's launch. The night settled over Phoenix, wrapping the city in quiet anticipation. In just a few hours, the Jessa Quinn Foundation would open its doors, offering hope to those who needed it most. The path forward was clear at last, not one of vengeance or bitterness, but of healing and renewed purpose. Staff members worked through the night, arranging chairs, testing audio equipment, and preparing welcome packets for the morning's guests. Local news crews set up their equipment, ready to broadcast the ceremony live. Security teams conducted final sweeps of the building and surrounding area. Everything was ready. The Foundation, born from crisis but built on hope, would soon begin its vital work. Jessa and Vincent had transformed a moment of violence into a mission of peace, proving that even the darkest circumstances could lead to light. The morning sun painted Phoenix in golden light as crowds gathered outside the newly established Jessa Quinn Foundation. The pristine building stood as a beacon of hope against the crisp blue sky. Security personnel directed an eclectic mix of attendees, silver-haired veterans wearing their service pins with pride, teenagers from local youth programs, distinguished civic leaders in formal attire, and news crews setting up their equipment. Inside the main hall, Jessa stood quietly before a large portrait of her mother. The photograph captured her mother's warm smile and kind eyes, the same values that had guided Jessa's own life of service. She reached out and touched the frame gently, remembering all the lessons about courage and compassion that had led to this moment. "Your mother would be incredibly proud," Vincent said softly, approaching from behind. He looked different now, his once rigid corporate demeanor replaced by something more genuine and approachable. "Thank you," Jessa replied, smoothing her blazer. "For everything." The ceremony space filled quickly. Senior citizens chatted with young volunteers, while veteran support groups mingled with community leaders. Media cameras whirred quietly in the background, capturing the historic moment. The Foundation's mission statement gleamed on the wall behind the podium, empowering youth through truth, service, and second chances. At precisely 10 o'clock, the program began. Local officials spoke about the Foundation's importance to Phoenix. Youth representatives shared their hopes for the programs ahead. Veterans talked about healing through service. Each speaker touched on the remarkable story that had brought them all together. When it was time for the main presentation, Vincent rose and approached the podium. The room fell silent. He looked out at the gathered faces, some skeptical, others hopeful, all waiting to hear from the man whose public transformation had captured national attention. "1 month ago," Vincent began, his voice steady but touched with emotion, "I stood at another podium, making a very different kind of announcement. I was angry, scared, and trying to buy my way out of guilt. But something profound happened in the weeks that followed." He turned to where Jessa sat, their eyes meeting in a moment of shared understanding. "Jessa Quinn took a bullet for me that day," Vincent continued. "But what she really did was far more extraordinary. She gave me back my soul." A ripple of response moved through the crowd. Jessa remained composed, though her eyes glistened slightly. Through her example of courage, forgiveness, and unwavering moral strength, she showed me what true leadership looks like. She helped heal my family. She proved that one person's commitment to doing what's right can change everything. Vincent gripped the podium, his next words carrying the weight of absolute conviction. I will spend the rest of my life proving that the world is still full of people worth living for." The applause began slowly, then swelled into a standing ovation. Elderly veterans stood straight and proud. Young people cheered. Community leaders nodded in approval. Even the most hardened media personnel seemed moved. Jessa rose and joined Vincent at the podium, her presence embodying the quiet strength that had changed so many lives. Together they cut the ceremonial ribbon, officially opening the Foundation's doors. The crowd moved outside into the bright morning sun. Jessa and Vincent stood at the entrance, greeting people as they passed. The warmth on their faces seemed to glow with more than just sunlight. It carried the radiance of hope, of purpose found, of lives ready to be changed. "Ready?" Vincent asked quietly. Jessa nodded, surveying the crowd of people who would be the first to benefit from the Foundation's programs. "Ready to build something better." The sun continued to rise in the crystal-clear Arizona sky, casting long shadows behind them and illuminating the path ahead, a path they would walk together, guided by the light of new purpose and the promise of lives transformed. Thank you for being here. If something in this story stayed with you, I'd love to see you again. Subscribe, and tomorrow I'll bring you another story crafted with heart.